Is your company managing the digital transformation? On this episode of Inside AB, we're talking to the author of a new book that helps C-suite executives manage to do just that. I'm Eddie Taylor, and today I'm joined by Alexander Rauser, CEO and founder of Prototype in Dubai. So welcome, Alex. This is your new book, The Boardroom Guides to Digital Accountability. Congratulations on its publication. Why did you write it?
So the idea from the book came basically out of the experience that we have with like enterprises today, right? So when they're obviously trying to digitally transform and innovate, we're seeing a lot of companies making not necessarily the best decisions or having not necessarily a way to actually measure the impact of their digital investments. And one of the things that keeps coming up, right, is that the executives in the C-level don't necessarily have a way to actually measure and see what's the impact of the money that they're giving actually has back to the business. And that's where the book idea came from, to basically create a guide for executives to measure the impact of digital initiatives without necessarily going down and implementing themselves.
Okay, and when you say digital, you're not simply talking about an app or a website. We're talking about everything in a business that can be digitized in effect.
Right. Yeah. So it's everything from any channel that you would have, from a digital channel. But what the book also looks at is what do you actually need to realize this, right? So what is the knowledge and the skills and the resources that you would require? How do you adapt your processes accordingly? How do you then implement the platforms, right? And this is where a lot of businesses go wrong these days, because they jump into the platform, into the solution first, and then don't necessarily have figured out the processes and the internal knowledge that they need. And then the last thing of that is actually creating business impact, right? And that whole framework evolves around that, because any dollar you spend, you want to get a return on it, right? And each digital solution needs to do that as well.
So what are you seeing from being out there? Your company is a consultancy, you're consulting on digital implementation and strategies. What's the consistent thing that companies are doing wrong, would you say, that this book would help them address?
So I think it's two things. One of them is not necessarily measuring the investment, right? Because we're still asking companies, so okay, so you're running a social media campaign, but how do you measure if it works, right? And then it's measured in terms of engagement or I don't know, likes and shares and stuff like that. But then the question is how does this actually contribute back to your objective of whatever you want to do, like increasing sales or generating leads and so forth. And so this is one example of more a marketing digital initiative. But if you apply this to something else, so what is the return of investment of your CRM system, right? So how does your new transformation strategy for your ERP or your enterprise service bus actually add additional benefits to the company? How does it create more efficiency? How can you measure this actually? And that's the idea, to give companies a path to do this. And then the second mistake, apart from measuring it, is that a lot of companies, because they have a very, let's say, aggressive agenda to transform, that they jump into ready-made solutions. And that's when you obviously go and buy the big systems that are the same for all the different competitors that you have. And what you get out of it is a lot of technical debt. You have a very hard time to change later on, and you don't have an offer that actually differentiate yourself from any of your competitors.
Yeah, I was going to say, one of the things from reading the book that comes out over and over again is don't jump for the expensive off-the-shelf product. That seems to be one of the overarching messages of the book, really.
The question is what are you actually paying for, right? And if you're paying $1 million for a solution, then you would expect to get a certain either efficiency from it, or you would get a certain return from it as such. But this is not measured, and this is where the big problem comes from, because the investment is $1 million, but we're not necessarily looking at what comes after that. How many more millions do we need to actually spend to see an impact from it? And some of these programs take so long that the competition that doesn't use those softwares has already moved in a completely different direction.
So who's doing it right then, in your experience?
Well, so if we look at enterprise customers across the board, right? So it's there is not a lot of well, I wouldn't say they're none that do it right, but there is not anything that really shines, right? Because they all have the same challenge, which is the resources. Everyone is fighting for resources right now. But if we look at those, what we call the like startup type companies, and I'm even talking about established startup or like disruptive companies, such as like Uber, Airbnb, even companies like Kareem here, right? They have a completely different way of approaching technology. They are releasing software and updates on a daily basis. And if you look at the average corporate entity, then or any enterprise, you will find that like they take in like 2-3 weeks to actually put an update on their website, right? And that's not really acceptable anymore in today's age.
So how should the book be used?
Well, so it's a short book, right? So it takes a couple of hours to read.
Yep, 90 pages I think it is. There we go, yeah, just over 90
Yeah.
pages, yeah.
So, and that was the idea, right? Because like if you're an executive, you don't want to read like a big book, and it's also not required for you to become like a digital expert. And I think this is where like a lot of the executives maybe, they have this like fear that they need to know everything about digital, and actually they don't, because like what they should be doing is just like apply the same methods on how they were running like a regular business onto their new digital business, and making sure that they get an ROI from whatever they're doing. And the book gives some ideas on how they can actually implement it.
Okay, the most important question is where can we get it?
It's available on Amazon, so people can go and search for the title and find it on Amazon.
Perfect. And again, it's Boardroom Guide to Digital Accountability by Alexander Rauser. Thank you very much indeed for joining us on this issue of Inside AB. Thank you all for watching, and don't forget us to subscribe to our YouTube channel and watch out for more updates. Thank you.